Okay, microphone is on, camera is rolling, and welcome back to episode 39 of the podcast. How you doing? Episode 39, almost up to episode 40, and only 12 or 13 episodes away from a full year's worth of podcasting, which is insane. I hope you've all had a good week, particularly this week, because this week for a lot of you will be your first full week back at work, and for a lot of you this week, or the day that you're listening to this, so tomorrow, Monday, will probably be your first day back at work for some of you, because you've either gone back last week or gone back this week. So I hope you're enjoying it first and foremost. And if you're anywhere around the world where you're unable to go back to work due to restrictions or due to anything else, I hope you're happy, healthy, and doing well. I've had a great week this week. I had my first sort of real productive week back. I sort of did some work on and off in the first few days, because what was it? New Year's Eve was like a Thursday, and then we had Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I did a little bit of work over those days, but not too much. So this week was kind of my first full, genuine week back at work. And back at training and doing everything. And one of the things that I have done that I'm really, really proud of is meditation. Meditation has been a big part of this week, and it's been a big goal of mine for this year, is to do it consistently and actually do it consistently. And this is not an ad, but I, for a long time, I tried to just do my own meditations. So read about different meditation types and then pick like some ethereal, if you want to describe it that way, ethereal music, and just go with it myself. And it just never really worked, because first of all, I didn't know what I was doing. Second of all the guided meditations that I found just got boring after one or two times listening to them. And just I didn't feel like I was actually learning anything, which is probably just my competitive side coming out, feeling like I have to be good at meditation, which defeats the purpose of it entirely. But I wanted to feel like I was actually getting better at the practice. I wanted to feel like I was progressing in meditation and not just doing it for the sake of doing it. So I finally went and purchased a subscription to a guided meditation service. They're a little bit expensive. I've steered away from it for a while, because not necessarily because it itself is expensive, but you guys all know the drill. You know, you see a price tag of like $15 a month, and you're like, oh, $15 a month, I can handle that. And then 6 months later, you're paying for 20 different subscription services, all at $1,500 a month, $15 a month, and suddenly you're paying $300 a month for things that you barely use. So I just wanted to steer away from doing that for as long as I can and try to do it for free. But I've just realized that it's not really possible, or not, at least not possible for me. If you guys can do that, great, fantastic, but I can't. And this isn't an ad or anything like that, but I genuinely just do believe in this service. I decided to go with Sam Harris's Waking Up, mainly because it has an entire course built into this subscription service that's like a beginner course to meditation. What's today? Today's the 10th. So today, after this podcast, I'll be doing day 10 of the Waking Up course, and it's been really, really good. It's been really, really good to actually feel like I'm progressing and actually feel like I'm learning. I haven't had any breakthroughs yet. I've heard a lot about people that have some pretty profound experiences with meditation and find it to be just profound, I guess is a buzzword you could use for it. But what I have found is it's very anchoring. It's kind of like a reset on each day, or if I'm feeling overwhelmed, I can sit and do that particular day's meditation again, and it kind of resets me in that moment and brings my attention back to center, which is probably the purpose of meditation. And I've got this big idea of what I expect meditation to be, and it's not that, but I found it to be a really, really good anchoring point for my day. So I would highly, highly recommend it. I would highly recommend Sam Harris's Waking Up app if you want to get it. It's not super expensive, but it's not cheap either. So I'm glad I'm glad I bit the bullet and went for it. But take that with a grain of salt. I've also been training a lot this week, which is exciting. It's good to be back to training. It's also good to be in the same year that I'm eventually going to be racing this Ironman, since last year's got cancelled. So that's exciting as well. I'm back to swimming again. I went for my first swim because I used to be a swimmer. So I kind of just had in the back of my mind that, I don't need to do that much swimming training. Boy, was I wrong. I went and swam about 2 kilometers the other day, and it wasn't difficult, but it was weird being back in the pool again. This is all besides the point completely. One thing I do want to talk to you guys about quickly at the start of this episode, because it's not the topic that I want to speak about, but it kind of loosely relates to it. I'm taking some time off drinking. Take everything I'm about to say with a grain of salt, because I have never ever had any issues with substance abuse. I've never had any alcohol problems. I've never faced addiction. I do have an addictive personality. It's why I get addicted to stuff like my work, with my exercise, with my training, with a lot of different things. But I usually try to gear those addictions towards productivity, because I know I have an addictive personality. But I've never suffered with any addictions to substances. I've never had any issues with drugs. I've never had any issues with smoking. I've never had any issues with alcohol. I've never been a smoker, first of all. And I'm a very light drinker at best. Maybe I'll go out occasionally with friends and have a little bit of a binge, if you will. But I wanted to take some time off alcohol because I found that I'm just not proud of the person I am around those moments. And I have come to learn that it just doesn't serve my priorities right now. That sounds a bit airy-fairy and a bit extreme, but I just found that it right now it doesn't bring me anything other than what it takes away. And I'm just not proud of the person I am during. I'm not proud of the person I am before, and I'm not proud of the person I am the day after. And it's been a really, really profound. I hate using buzzwords, but it's been a really interesting experience because there's a stigma around, if you're not drinking, then you can't be going out clubbing, you can't go out to bars, you can't do a lot of the things that you do in social situations. And I kind of just completely ignored that this week and allowed myself to continue doing everything I would be doing if I was drinking, but just not drink. And that meant that on Wednesday night, because a lot of my friends are still on holidays, so that meant on Wednesday night I went out to a bar and was out until midnight. On Friday I was out till 2. On Saturday I was out till 2. And I was completely fine. Dead ass sober, completely fine. And the thing I learned from that situation is that I actually enjoyed denying myself the high more than the high itself. It came about because I found a lot of gratification. I found a lot of gratification from telling people that I wasn't drinking or telling people that I don't drink. If someone asked me why I wasn't drinking, I found a lot of satisfaction in explaining it to them and telling them that I wasn't. And the really bizarre thing that happened is after that conversation was out of the way, my night was exactly the same as it would have been if I was drinking, without the downsides. Nothing changed after that point. Once you got over that hurdle of telling people that you're not doing something that they expect you to do, that's it. There's no extra stigma about it. Your night doesn't deviate into a different direction and you just get separated from that group of friends. My night was exactly the same. So I would highly encourage any of you, if you have been thinking about taking some time off drinking, or if there's anything that you want to take some time away from, maybe it's, anything that you think doesn't serve you or anything you think has an unhealthy impact on your life, try to remember that. And like I said, take everything I say with a grain of salt, because this is not something that I've ever had any issues with. It's just something that I didn't think was healthy for the person that I want to be. Understand that it's not as impactful to your experience as you expect. I wrote in my journal yesterday that from hanging out with my friends this week sober, I feel like alcohol was directly hindering my ability to build deep connections with those people. Because when you're drunk, you don't feel like the connections and the conversations you have are genuine, or at least are as impactful as they would be if you're sober, even if they're the exact same conversations. And I just found it really, really interesting. It's this decision to do this is, and this is something that I want to speak about in today's podcast, or more so in the direction of creativity. But when I was sitting down to do my goal setting this year, or at the start of this year, I wrote down a line that I think is going to hold true, or I wrote it down with the intention of it holding true to my year, or it's something I want to live by this year. And the quote is that things that matter most to me will never be at the mercy of things that matter least. And it kind of gave me a really easy stepping stone to make decisions that make those decisions that you know are going to be good for you, but you never really feel like you have to make those decisions. By writing down that quote every single day when I journal, it's made me recognize, or made me put into lists, the pros and cons of certain things that I do. In the case of alcohol, it's feeling like crap and unproud of myself and being unhappy, and then the next day being unproductive, as opposed to building deeper connections, being a happier and more successful person, and being proud of the person that I am. And as I've continued to do this week, as I've continued to expose myself to situations where I would otherwise be drinking, that list of the things that matter most to me is growing far bigger than the things that matter least. So write that down. If you're someone who's thinking about making some changes that are a little bit more difficult, maybe you want to exercise more, maybe you want to be more productive in your business, maybe you want to be more successful, think about that quote or that line. I don't know where I got it from. I think I got it from 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, writing your personal mission statement. It was like an example in there, but think about that quote each time, that the things that matter most to me will never be at the mercy of things that matter least. What are you doing on a day-to-day basis that's hindering you from being the person that you want to be? Write a pros and cons list of the things that you want to change, or the changes that you want to make in your own life. For me, it became really bloody simple and straightforward that alcohol needed to go. It was slowing me down. It was making me unproductive. It was making me disappointed in the person that I am. So it was simple. This doesn't mean it's going to be forever. I think that right now I just want to create a layer of separation between, and again, take everything I say with a grain of salt, because this is not something I struggled with, but I wanted to create that layer of separation between that. I just wanted to quickly touch on that because I thought that was an interesting thing that I've experienced in the first 10 days of 2021. Today I wanted to talk about something that I have, again, come back to from just setting priorities in my life this year. Again, comes back to the things that matter most to me will never be at the mercy of things that matter least. And that's that that it's not just enough to create. If you're a creative person and you want to build a following, you want to build a business, you want to create beautiful work, whatever it is, it's not simply enough to just create, to just make things, to just be an artist. It's not enough. What is your unique value proposition? What is it that you can bring to the table that no one else can? The reason why I wanted to talk about this today is I was thinking about this when I was brainstorming what I wanted to achieve out of this year. And the one thing that came to mind most prominently and most often in everything that I wrote and in a lot of my goal setting was mastery. Because a lot of the time, or a lot of my past sort of 4 years in business, or the last 5 years whilst I've been a creative, or been pursuing creative, I've always been a creative person, but the last 5 years sort of really directing my focus, a lot of my goals were around success and money. And it was good. It was a good idea to have those goals. But one of the things that I decided to do this year, and I spoke about this last week and I spoke about this the week before as well, is that I want to narrow my focus. I want to be a master. I want to be better at a very few important things rather than being a jack of all trades, being a really mediocre jack of all trades. I wanted to be a master of a very few important things rather than being a broad spectrum artist that you can just go to for whatever. And when I sort of reframed my goals around mastery, the thing that I realized is that success is a byproduct of mastery, but mastery is not a byproduct of success. You can achieve success without achieving mastery, but you can't achieve mastery without finding some sort of success, whether that's financial success, career success, recognition success, whatever it is. mastery will bring you some form of success. Think about it in the example of athletes. It's the best performing athletes that get paid the most amount of money, not the highest paid athletes that become the most best performing athletes. God, that was a tongue twister. Let me explain that again. It is the it is the most proficient athletes in their particular discipline, the most successful, the best athletes that get paid the most amount of money. It is not the highest paid athletes that become the best athletes. Does that make sense? You have to become the best athlete before you can become the highest paid athlete. It's not the other way around. That's a really, really simple way of explaining it, but essentially in the way that you explain it with creativity is that if you're the best photographer in the world, you will become the highest paid photographer in the world, whereas you will not become the highest paid photographer in the world unless you are the best paid photographer in the world. It doesn't go both ways, but you can achieve one without the other. In my case, I would not consider myself to be quote unquote successful, but I would consider myself to be someone who has built a nice nest egg for myself. I've done enough in this creative field to get myself to the point where I'm able to support myself financially off the back of my own creativity. That is something that I'm extremely proud of. The part that I'm not proud of, particularly, is that it's come at the expense of mastery. It's come at the expense of me focusing primarily on one particular thing and becoming so good at that thing that I then found success. I found success by saying yes to as many opportunities as I can, being able to do absolutely everything that someone asked me to do, and taking as many opportunities as I possibly could. That's one way to do it. And the reason why I did that is because I came from a spot where I hated my job and I needed to get out of it. So for me to get out of it, I needed to support myself financially. I didn't take the slow route of building my skills as I was working another job. I was too young and naive to do that. I thought, I hate this, I want to do this. I didn't think about the consequences. All I did was say, hey, I don't like this job anymore. I need to go and do this. How can I make this profitable as quickly as possible? Sure, I've developed some skills as a filmmaker, as a digital artist, as a photographer. I've definitely built a baseline of skills, but I have not achieved mastery in any particular thing because I've spread myself way too thin. And that is what I mean by you can achieve a level of success without achieving mastery, but you can't achieve mastery without finding some level of success. Now, you're probably thinking, that's great, Tom, but I have to pay my bills. Life costs money. And you can do both. You can do both in the sense that I just said, but you have to understand that if your only goal as a creative is to be able to pay your bills off the back of your creativity, you won't actually improve as a creative. In the same way that I didn't, in the same way that I was bumbling about doing a million different things at once without actually honing in on one particular skill. The reason why I did that is because every time an opportunity came, it took time away from my ability to become a better creative. If your only goal was to gain followers, then you would only focus on trends, headlines, and clickbait rather than the content that you connect most strongly with. And it's the same with money. If your only goal was money, you'll be easily distracted by the many opportunities that will come your way that will pull you away, like I said, pull you away from the things that you actually need to do. So how can you do both? Because I think it's important to do both. I think it's important to have a baseline understanding that life costs money and understand that most creative people don't want to go and get a part-time job working as a barista. They want to focus entirely on their creative work. So how can you do what I'm now trying to do, or what I plan on trying to do in 2021, whilst also doing enough to pay your bills? The first thing I'm trying to do a lot more of this year is prioritize practice and mastery in the time that I'm most efficient or most energized. For some of you, that might mean using your evenings, using your late nights to enroll in courses, to practice your editing skills, to practice your filmmaking skills, to write stories, to do whatever it is that can help you improve as your particular creative, as the medium that you want to find mastery in. And then using your other time to then find ways to pay your bills, but don't let the urgent jobs, don't let opportunities to pay your bills interrupt that efficient time. For me, I'm a morning person. So for me, using that first few hours of the day, if it means getting up a little bit early, if it means getting up at 5 o'clock rather than 7 o'clock, and using the first 3 or 4 hours of my day until 8 or 9 a.m. to work solely on me progressing as an artist, that would be the best opportunity for me because I'm most efficient or most energized and most creative during those hours. And then for the rest of the day, I can prioritize as much as I possibly can towards paying my bills. And that way you're giving yourself every opportunity to be the best creative you can. Because let's be perfectly honest, you've only really got on a day-to-day basis, 1, 2, 3 hours max of really good, efficient work. So why prioritize the stuff that's urgent over the stuff that's important in those situations? So use the hours that you're most energized, use the hours that you're most creative to prioritize your own creativity, and then use the rest of the hours to pay your bills, to do the things that you need to do. Do the things that we all know we need to do, in the sense that, like I said, life costs money. I wish it didn't, but it does. The second one I want to do is don't let urgent work consume your most important work. This is kind of a secondary to the last one I spoke about, but don't try to understand that saying yes is important, saying yes is super important, but you also need to learn to say no. If there are opportunities that come your way that have a nice sizable paycheck to them, but it interrupts the time that you would otherwise spend on your own work, you need to learn to say no to those. Because it's all very well and good to be like, I'm just going to say yes this one time. But I've said this before in the podcast. It's about building momentum in your own life. It's about getting the ball rolling and keeping it rolling. And if you hit a stop from that, if you stop that ball from rolling and you hit a wall and you have to start over again, that's all that momentum that you've halted. That's all the momentum that you need to speed up again. And each time you do that, you've given yourself an opportunity to do that. So now that that's an option in your own life, you're going to do it again. It's like what I've said with training, for example. I really like to train 6 or 7 days a week if possible and just take it easy on 3 of those days rather than training 5 days a week and taking 2 days off. And the reason for that is because those 2 days off halt my momentum so much that it's more difficult for me to get moving again than it would be to just keep going. It's like every single week taking 4 steps forward and 4 steps back, because the momentum that I lose from taking 2 days off in a row isn't worth the momentum that I gained. I would rather take 4 solid training days and then 3 really easy training days so my momentum slows but it never stops, than continue to let my momentum be stuck every single week. And it's the same thing here. If you give yourself the opportunity, like we said just then, in my case, to do my work every single morning between 5 and 8 a.m., and that time is me, that time is learning, and that time is mastery. If I'm using that time appropriately, and then suddenly an opportunity comes along for me to be at a shoot that doesn't really serve its purpose. Think about this though, like if there are opportunities that come your way, so for example with me, if there was an opportunity to, let's say, travel, or if there was an opportunity to shoot for Nike, or an opportunity to shoot for a big football team or Cricket Australia, or another opportunity like that, then yes, I've got to use some discretion and understand that that's probably a bloody good opportunity that I could use to further my career in some capacity. But anything below that needs to be prioritized appropriately. And this can be difficult. This is far easier said than done, because there's going to be times where, that paycheck seems really, really nice. That opportunity seems really, really appropriate right now. Or hey, there's that new thing that you want to buy that this paycheck would be really, really good for, or you need to pay your rent. But it's about understanding that you need to do everything you possibly can to get yourself to a point where you're able to live, and then the rest of your time is spent prioritizing what's important. And this comes to the next one, that understand that the rewards will be better if your work is unique. I can't remember who I had this conversation with, but I had this conversation with a creative friend of mine. God, I can't remember who it was, but think about it like this. If you're the only creator, and let's say in Australia, because it's in my case, or in America, or in wherever you are around the world, if you're the only creator in your country that offers the style and quality of work that you do, and a company comes to you asking to work with you, then you are in complete control of that situation, because if they don't go with you, they don't get what they want. So you can charge whatever you want at whatever rate you see fit for what you want to do, because if they say no to you, they don't get the work that you offer at all from anyone else. They might get a B grade or D grade version of your work, but they don't get your work, because your work is unique in the style and the quality that you give that work. In comparison, if your work is just another resampled version of thousands of other creatives in your country, and a company comes to you asking for your work, they are in complete control. Because if you don't fit within their budget, then they know that there are thousands or hundreds of other people that are willing to take your place as soon as you say no, or as soon as they say no to you. So the rewards are far better if you simply prioritize your work being unique. If you make it a priority that you need to be better, or the best version of yourself, then it will make the rewards so much better for what you're doing. It'll mean that you can control any situation that you're given, and it'll mean that any amount of money that you could have been offered in replacement of your mastery will not make sense in the long run if you're willing to be patient. So although it might feel unproductive or irresponsible to say no to a client project to replace the time that you would otherwise spend perfecting your craft, in the long run, it's not going to make sense that you would ever say yes to anything like that. It's going to make perfect sense that you prioritized all that extra time working on your craft, or spending a lot of time for no money, if you're simply patient enough to understand that if you are unique, the rewards will be so much better. If your work is unique, if the work that you provide is the best it possibly can be, then the rewards are going to be better. It comes back to this thing that it's the best that get paid the most, not the highest paid that become the best. Mastery will lead to success in some capacity, but success will not necessarily lead to mastery. So let me finish with this point, or let me finish this point with this point. Shift your priorities away from success or money, and just focus on becoming really bloody good at what you do. Focus entirely on becoming the best possible version of the creator that you can possibly be, and all the success that you want to achieve will be a byproduct of that mastery. If your goal is success, you won't actually improve the skills required to make you successful, because you'll be spending all your time doing things that bring you immediate success, all of those urgent things that come with a quick paycheck and easy success, but you won't find the success that you actually desire in the future. So above all else, make sure that your goals this year are geared towards mastery, or perfecting your craft, and success as a secondary goal. It's okay to have financial goals. I have financial goals for 2021. I have financial goals for 2021, but I think it's important, or most important, to make sure that mastery is at least the number one priority on that list, because it trickles down. The financial success that you want to find will be a result of the mastery, not the other way around. I wanted to talk about this as well, because it kind of bounces off this. You need to have an objective opinion of your own work. I wanted to talk about this as the main topic of today's podcast, but the whole success and mastery comparison kind of became, I think, the priority of the podcast, and then this is kind of how you can create a layer of separation between you and your own work. I get a lot of questions from people about, how can I stand out? Can you review my work? All of those sort of messages where people are expecting me to sort of give them the trick to achieving success, or the trick to more people seeing your work, or the trick to gaining followers. And the thing that I always say to them is you need to have an unbiased opinion of your own work to really understand what you need to improve, or where you need to improve. And you can only do this by creating a level of separation between you and your work. To begin to achieve mastery in your own work, you need to first have enough objectivity to understand that mastery isn't there yet. You can't get yourself somewhere that you already think you are. You can't be a better creator if you already think you're a good creator. So by creating that level of separation between you and your own work, you can begin to look at your work objectively. You can begin to see your work the way that other people would see your work. And obviously this is easier said than done. Everyone is their own harshest critic, but their own biggest supporter. How did I say critic just then? Oh my God. Everyone's their own harshest critic, but they're also their own biggest supporter. No one's going to see your work with as much context, with as much story, with as much history as you do. Each piece of work you create is just another piece of the story of your life, of everything that's gone into you getting to that piece of work. But when someone sees your work for the first time, they are seeing you and they're seeing your work for the very first time. All they see is the objective piece of creativity. They don't see the story behind it. They don't see your history. They don't see your pain. They don't see your struggle. They don't see your failures. They don't see everything that's gone into that piece of work. All they see is the piece of work. So you need to see your work that way as well to understand where improvements can be made. That doesn't mean don't put your emotions into your work or don't put your own story into the things you create. It just means you need to shift the way you see your work. Understand that you have the context. Creating a piece of work and understanding or expecting people to see it in the same way that you do, or expecting people to love it as much as you do, or expecting people to be as amazed as it is you are, is like telling someone the last 5 pages of a story and then getting disappointed because they don't understand the depth of the main character or the ending or the struggle of the ending or the depth of the ending or the meaning of the ending because they don't have the full context. You're essentially telling them a fraction of a story and expecting them to see the story the exact same way that you do. No one gives as much of a fuck about your work as you give a fuck about your work. You're your own harshest critic, but you're also your own biggest supporter because you have all the context. You know everything. You have all the emotions, all the story, all the struggle, all the failures that have gone into that piece of work right now. So you kind of need to create that level of separation, that layer between what you are doing right now and where you've been, or separating yourself from the work that you create, to understand that there are any improvements that you need to make. It's the same argument as if someone criticizes your work, they're not criticizing your character, they're not criticizing the person that you are, they're not criticizing the things that you've done or the things that you've going to do or everything that you've done or everything that you're going to do. They're not criticizing anything other than the piece of work in front of them. They might word it a little bit harshly. They might make a judgment call about the kind of person that you are, but they don't have the full context, so they can't possibly make a judgment on who you are. In the same way that someone gives you praise, if someone thinks that your work is great or someone says that they love your work, they're not saying that they love you. They're saying that they love that particular piece of imagery or that particular film or that particular song in that exact moment in the context of their own lives. That's got nothing to do with you. Nothing to do with you. In fact, it would be egotistical to expect that someone who likes your work likes you. They've got nothing to do with each other. So this is a little bit of a harsh reality to learn in the beginning, but it's that you have to see your work the way that other people will see it without all the context. You have to understand that, hey, yeah, I've put years of blood, sweat, and tears into creating the work that I create today. I've put hours into learning everything that I know. I've failed hundreds of times and this sucks, but I'm finally happy with this one piece of work. And then someone comes along and goes, this is shit. You then have to step back and go, maybe they're right. Maybe they're also wrong, but understanding that they have an objective view of your work. They have an opinion of it that you can't see. So try to as much as you can. Obviously, it's far easier said than done, but try to, as much as you can, Create a layer of separation between the work that you create and the person that you are. Try to understand that yes, you will put a lot into that work. Yes, you'll put your emotion and your story and your history into everything that you create, but that doesn't mean that the people that are viewing it will be viewing it or viewing it with that context. All they're seeing is an image or a video or a song on their phones for a split second that impacts them in a way that directly correlates with the position that they are in their own lives at that exact moment. So try to understand that you and your work are completely separate, even if it feels like an extra part of you. So just to sort of bring this all together, because I don't know how cohesive this has been. I know I say that for every single podcast, but just to bring this, full circle, or to recap, I want you to bring it back to the quote that I talked about at the start of this podcast, that the things that matter most to me will never be at the mercy of things that matter least. Figure out what it is that's most important to you within your own creativity, within your own life, within the things that you, or the person that you want to be, whether that be a creative person or a successful person or an athlete or whatever it is. Try to figure out those things and then try to prioritize the most important aspects to getting to that without including all the extra things that go into life. If I had it my way, I would sit here learning nothing but how to create beautiful pieces of digital art and not have to ever worry about money and not have to ever worry about any external circumstances and not have to worry about my own health or anything like that. I would just focus purely on that, but that's not life. That's not life at all. Life is way more complicated than that. Life involves money. It involves looking after your health. It involves emotions. It involves other people. It involves partners. It involves work. It involves a whole bunch of extra problems that you have to handle in conjunction with having to handle your own mastery. But understand that if you prioritize the right things in your life, then you can still achieve mastery whilst handling those things. For me, this year is going to be a year of how can I continue to pay my bills off the back of my own creativity, something that I am incredibly proud of from the last few years. One of my biggest accomplishments in my life thus far is the fact that I am a self-sufficient or self-sustaining creator. That's something that I never thought was possible for me. One of the things that I always remember as a kid was my entire family telling me over and over and over again, Tom, you need to be an artist. And my exact thought in that moment was, yeah, but artists don't make any money. It was literally one of my biggest limiting beliefs as a kid, and it's the reason why I didn't sort of dive headfirst into actually pursuing a creative career until I was well into my 20s. I was 20 at the time. I was 19 when I first sort of discovered Peter McKinnon, but I was 20 when I really decided that this was something that was possible for me. And that's because I had that limiting belief of, I don't think artists make any money. So one of my proudest accomplishments I've ever accomplished is the fact that I'm a self-sustaining creator. So this year is about, hey, how can I continue to do that? How can I continue to be that person whilst also making myself a master at the thing that I want to do, or being the best in my particular medium, creating the best possible work, or just being fucking good at what I do? How can I make that a priority this year whilst also handling those things? And if that means that I have to prioritize just 2 hours a day dedicated to honing in on my skills and then use the rest of my hours just to scrape by and pay my bills, or if it means making less money and focusing on this, if it means just making the bare minimum and living off tuna and pasta and doing what I can to prioritize as much time as possible on becoming a master at the thing that I'm doing, then so be it. I know this sounds ironic for someone who's a creator, a business owner, doing Ironmans and all this dumb stuff that I fill my time with for God knows why, but it's something that I want to do this year, and I hope that a lot of you do as well. So to finish off, understand that mastery will lead to success in whatever capacity, not necessarily financial success, but it might achieve status, it might achieve fame, it might achieve whatever comes with a level of mastery. And the rewards for being the best at what you do are so much better than the rewards of being good at everything. It's the Pomodoro idea, or what's the principle? It's like anyway, bloody Casey Neistat has an entire video dedicated. If you do 10 things to 10%, then you're only going to be average at 10 different things. Whereas if you do one thing 100%, then you're going to be the best, or the best you can possibly be at that particular thing, because you've prioritized 100% of your energy on that one thing. And the rewards of being the best you possibly can at one particular thing, like I said, it's not necessarily going to lead to financial success. I can't promise that for anyone. But the rewards of being the best you can possibly be at one particular thing are so much better than the rewards of saying yes to as many opportunities that come your way. So yes, there are benefits to, like I said, it's my proudest accomplishment to date is that I'm a self-sustaining creator. But it has a pretty low ceiling. There is a point where you get to where you're unfulfilled by the fact that you don't really have any real mastery in one particular thing. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I hope it makes sense to some degree. I've been slightly distracted, if you can tell by me spilling over my words, because it's about 30 degrees outside and I want to go to the beach. But I hope you're having a lovely start to 2021. I hope you're enjoying everything that you're doing. I hope you're having a good and productive start to the year. Let's just do a little quick thing at the end here. Because I haven't talked about book club for ages. Where's my notes on book club? I want to talk about book club because I haven't talked about book club for many episodes, and that's simply just because I haven't been prioritizing my reading as much as I should have. So I apologize for that. I'm also thinking about, and tell me if you're still listening to this episode, I'm thinking about creating a private Facebook group for book club. So sort of just a little bit of a community. It's kind of like a mailing list for the podcast, or Discord. I don't have any experience with Discord, but I hear good things, and my little sister knows how to use it. So maybe I'll get her to help me learn how to use Discord. But maybe I'll start a Discord. Let me know if you listen to this podcast and you're really interested in book club and you want to actually start a genuine book club. I'm happy to do it via email. I'm happy to do it via Facebook, or I'm happy to do it via Discord. Let me know which of those works best for you, and we can set it up. It won't be something that I spend a massive amount of time on, but it'll essentially just be where I post. I'm a bit of a nerd. I make book reports on every single book I read. I write down all my favorite quotes from the books I read. I make notes. I create summaries of the books that I read. I'm a huge nerd. So this will essentially be a place where I'll just every now and again I'll get on and be like, hey, I bought these books. These are the books I've just read. Here's some good takeaways from X, Y, Z. And here's the books that I'm going to be reading in the future. But it'll mostly be an opportunity for you guys to get on there as well. Or we could make it formal and we can just stick to one book a week and we all read the same book and whatever we do. But anyway, book club for this week. I am currently listening to, or I've started again because I started ages ago and then I stopped listening to any audiobooks. And by the time I came back to it, I didn't really remember what was going on. So I started again. I'm about 3/4 of the way through. Grit by Angela Duckworth. Really, really, really good book. She's a very, very intelligent woman. I believe she's a PhD in psychology. Give me a sec. I believe she is. No, I don't. I'm probably butchering it. Anyway, it's a really, really good book. It essentially breaks down the principles of grit and what creates grit, and the idea of being of a growth mindset rather than being of a state. What is it? A fixed mindset versus a growth mindset, and all those sort of ideas surrounding someone who has what she describes as grit, which I really, really like. It's kind of like a scientific approach to the same thing as what was it? David Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me. I feel like they're very similar books, but Angela Duckworth is like the very scientific, like this is what grit is. And David Goggins is like, hey, I have grit. Let me tell you my story. So it's a cool book. I'm also reading or started listening to The Unfair Advantage by Ash Ali and Hassan Kuba. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that name, but I've only just started it, so I can't say too much about it, but I'm enjoying it so far, I guess. But I'm only really one chapter in, so can't really say too much about it. What I've purchased this week as well, which I'm really, really excited about because I've been recommended this set more times than I can count, is I got Austin Kleon's series. So I got Steal Like an Artist, Show Your Work, and Keep Going. Really, really short, simple books. I actually bought them in like a 3-pack for the same price as what you'd normally buy one book. So I'm really, really excited to dive headfirst into all of those. Like I said, I've been recommended all of them more times than I'd like to admit. So I'm really excited to get into those. And then I've started for the 3rd time. This is probably a sign that I just need to shelve it and go and buy or go and start reading another book. But I've started reading Ego is the Enemy for the 3rd time. I don't know. I like it. I do like it. But I find that Ryan Holiday's writing style, his books are great. His books are fantastic, but his writing style is very detached. Like there's no real continuous story. It's like you read, they're the kind of books where you could pick it up and pick a random chapter and read it and you'll take something away from it. It's not like 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, for example, is the kind of book where you read it cover to cover and it grips you the entire way. Atomic Habits is the kind of book where you read it cover to cover and it grabs you the entire way. There is a story as well as a lesson that you have to learn from that book, which I really, really appreciate, but that is just not what Ryan Holiday does. So I find that like when I read Ryan Holiday's books, it's not the kind of thing where I can't put it down. You know what I mean? It's the kind of thing where I finish a chapter in it and I have to be like, okay, let's read another one. Let's get that wheel started up again and let's go again. It's not the kind of thing where I just like, I get to the next day, I'm like, I can't wait to read this. Like I have experienced with some books. I also want to read, I got recommended The Midnight Library. Is it The Midnight Library? I think it is. I think that's the book. Yeah, The Midnight Library. It's a story, a novel. So I'm really excited to dive in that. And I also got another one. Where is it? The Course of Love, which is also a novel or a non-fiction book. So I'm really excited to dive into a little bit more of a... God, am I getting those back to front? This will show how much of a dumbass I am, even though I read a hell of a lot non-fiction. Oh my God. Am I doing this wrong? Okay. Both of those are fiction. God, that shows my level of attention. But yeah, I'm excited to get into some fiction because I've been reading non-fiction all of 2020, and I appreciate non-fiction, but there is a point where I want to do some reading for leisure because I think reading beyond the knowledge that you gain from it is just a great exercise to do for your own sort of, like we spoke about last week, learning new words and improving your vocab, and also just improving your ability of expression, I think is a benefit from reading that I've really found to be profound. There's the profound buzzword again, and I think that's a pretty good sign that we need to finish. If you've enjoyed this episode, if you've enjoyed any of the episodes of the podcast so far, or up until this point, I would really, really, really appreciate it if you could share it with a friend. If you could share the podcast with someone you think may appreciate it, share it with someone who you think would enjoy it, or hell, share it with someone who's just got an extra hour once a week that they need to burn. I would really appreciate it. It would help me out a lot. And yeah, but you know, I'm not your dad. You don't have to do anything I tell you to do, and I'll speak to you guys next week.